4 can't survive. How y'all doing? Friday, July the 30th, 2021, 5 o'clock in the afternoon here in Elgin, Texas. Somebody was beating on my window. I had to stop and see what was going on. I'm not real sure what I want to talk about today. I was going to talk about credit and debt. Kind of throw some thoughts out there, just stuff for y'all to be ruminating about and thinking about. But truth is, Eric posted a little TikTok video on our page a few days ago about a flea in a mayonnaise jar, and had a 36-inch vertical, but somebody put that lid on, and after enough attempts he realized he wasn't going to get beyond that lid, so he quit jumping so high. And I've been trying to kind of study on that and tell you what I think about it. And the video that Eric posted, and his comment was that the guy was right, and to a certain extent he is. We have a tendency to get, we let our environment limit us much more than we should. Like I said, I really don't know quite how I feel like we ought to talk about this and address it, but I think it's something that needs to be talked about and addressed, because it brings up something it's a really good point, and that is that we let our environment and the world around us limit what our potential is, when we've got so much more potential, any one of us, at any given time than we realize. And I can sit here and tell y'all that you have got so much more potential than you even know, because I'm looking at it from my perspective, and I would be right. You don't even begin to realize the potential and the opportunity that is out there, and what would be possible if you really applied yourself. And that all sounds well and good, because I'm an old man talking to folks that are young. Problem is that works both ways. It works for me too. I have a tendency to let my environment limit what I'm capable of. Maybe it's in a different way than what y'all are experiencing, but I do think that probably all of us kind of struggle with that a little bit. So I think what I would want to say about this is that, first off, as young people, there's so much more opportunity out there than you realize. When I was a little kid, they used to tell us that we could grow up to be president, and I don't know why anybody would ever want to do that, but that was what they would tell us, and to an extent it was possible. Then you look around and you realize really that only the rich lawyers make it that far. Poor people from West Texas don't get to be president. George Bush supposedly was from West Texas, but he wasn't poor, and the family was actually from the Northeast. They weren't West Texans. They were Yankees living in Midland. That's what they were. We have a tendency to let that happen, and we look at what we define as success, and we sit there and we, oh man, look here what they got. They got them fancy fine homes, and they drive them fancy fine automobiles. And they got this, that, and other, and so they must be successful. And I'm going to tell you now that they're not. Now, I know that's hard to believe, and it does depend on how you define success. If you want to define it strictly by an accounting ledger and what you got in the dollars and cents column, then yes, that probably is a definition that works for success. Does that necessarily mean success? No. And what I'm going to tell you about that is, if you don't believe me, you look at all these rich celebrities. You got sports stars that make millions of dollars a year. You've got movie celebrities that make millions of dollars a picture. You would think they have got the world by the tail. You got paparazzi following them around, snapping their picture. You got people wanting their autograph and just falling all over themselves because they think they're somebody special. And at the end of the day, them folks are just like us. They put their britches on one leg at a time, just like we do. And The best example of that, and the fact that all of those trappings do not equal success, is Robin Williams. Um, Here's a guy that was incredibly funny, incredibly talented, um, A-list star in Hollywood. You would think by definition that this guy was a picture of American success, but he suicided. Um, Everybody's got problems. And we look at our problems and we think ours, every one of us, we think ours is so much worse than everybody else's. But the fact is, everybody you run into is fighting some kind of a battle. Everybody you run into is dealing with some kind of a demon. We are all just doing the best we can one day at a time, um, and hoping for the best outcomes. And I don't know if that really even has anything to do with the 36-inch vertical that a flea might can jump or not. But what I would say is the definition of success would be getting up one more time than you're knocked down. That's all it takes is one. Are people going to knock you down? Yes. Are people going to disappoint you? Yes. Are people you love going to disappoint you? Yes. That's just people. And what we have to do is let go of that and realize that we are probably just as guilty. At some point, every one of us has disappointed or hurt somebody that we cared and loved. So success really then is just getting up one more time than you're knocked down. Now, what I will tell you is none of it is easy. If you're looking for financial success, and to some extent every one of us is, that's just the world that we live in. It's necessary to pay our bills. If you're looking for financial success, yeah, you might win the lottery, but I wouldn't bet my life plan on that. There are some of these people that are kind of anal, and they sit down and they write out these 5-year plans on how they're going to get from point A to point B over the next 5 years, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Me personally, I was a construction worker, and I had to be on a job at 7 o'clock, so I got out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning. I had to drive across Dallas to be there by 7, and we'd work till 3:30. And that was after I got to Dallas in '78. What got me to where I'm at right now is that at some point I realized that, for one, I was going to get too old for that kind of work, and I wasn't going to be able to do it anymore. And I wanted a little more than that kind of work was going to be able to give me in the way of lifestyle. So I started going to college at night, and my first class was at 5 o'clock. Now, I just told you I got off work at 3:30 in the afternoon, so now I got to be at class at 5. Now, don't leave time to go to the house and take a shower. You might grab a sandwich on the way to the school, about as good as it went. That was 4 nights a week, from 5 in the evening till 10 in the evening, and then Saturdays from 8 to noon. I had a Saturday class every semester I was there. The last semester I was there, I carried 19 credit hours and worked a full-time job and had a wife and 2 kids at home. I am divorced from that wife and married to grandma. And I could sit here and divorce is a terrible thing. But the one thing I would have to say is I don't know that I'd have ever finished school if my ex-wife, Michelle's mama, hadn't just been continually encouraging me, because there was, kids had ball games. I wanted to go to them, but I had class. There were different activities going on. I wanted to go, but I had class, or I had homework. If I wasn't in class, I was doing homework to get ready for the next class. And so all of that's really, really hard. You just have to decide if you want to make that choice and devote yourself to that and shoot for that opportunity of success. And it's a choice. You don't have to do it. But if you choose not to work that hard, you've got nobody to blame but yourself then when you don't reach that level of success that you want, because nobody's going to give it to you. Nobody's going to give you a darn thing in this world unless you just happen to hit the lottery and win it. The only way you're going to get it is to work and work hard. So I guess when you got that lid on that mayonnaise jar and you're a flea with a 36-inch vertical, you just keep beating on that lid. After a while, you're going to start denting it. After a while longer, you're going to punch through it. Women have been dealing with this for years. They call it the glass ceiling, because women could only rise so high in the business world, and then they would hit what they call the glass ceiling, and they couldn't get any higher. Those things are beginning to change. It's a little different now. There's a lot more successful women out there, a lot of very powerful women out there, and rightfully so. Y'all probably don't know this, or if you do, it's something you learned in a history book and just briefly in passing. But when I was in high school, they were trying to pass what was called the ERA. That was the 28th Amendment to the Constitution. It was called the Equal Rights Amendment, to guarantee women equal pay for equal work. Well, it never passed, but women have pretty well gotten there. There's still a certain amount of unfairness in the business world where women are concerned, but the truth of the matter is there's a certain amount of unfairness in the business world regardless of who you are and where you are. So it's not that it's singled out women, it's just that maybe it's a little bit easier to see with them. Anyway, I guess what I wanted to talk about was that darn flea. And I thought when Eric posted it and I watched that and I listened to it, and I thought first off how right it is, and second off that we can all make a choice to break out of those jars. If there's dysfunction in a family, and there always is, there's no such thing as a perfect family. So if there is dysfunction, I would challenge each of you to figure out what you thought was dysfunctional about your childhood. Figure that out. It may not be the same for all of you. It may be the same for all of you. Figure out what you would call that, and what it might be, and then at least mentally make a plan to break that cycle so that you don't pass that on down like those fleas to the next generation. In Eric's case, because he's the one that's got a little one, for Delilah, figure out what that dysfunction might be, and then start making an effort to figure out how you can be the one to break that cycle. Delilah will have her own that she needs to figure out, but you figure out one so that it doesn't go on generation after generation, because the nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles, grandparents, parents, whoever screwed that lid on that mayo jar so tight that you couldn't break out. And Graham, you've got Elliot. You got a lot of responsibility there. We'll tell you and I can talk more about that later. But you sign on with a kid, that's the biggest responsibility you'll ever take on, bar none. And you got to man up and live up to it. And so what I'd say, like, figure out what you've endured that you don't want to pass on to your kids, and then figure out how to break that cycle so that it can end with you. The world will be a better place for it. If y'all only knew, if you could only see yourself through the eyes of your mama and pawpaw and knew what kind of potential you had from what we can see, oh, y'all set the world on fire. So y'all go get them, tear them up, kick some butt, take some names, make a list if you need to. Y'all go get them. Pawpaw loves you. We'll see you.